Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Charlton Chronicles. Tonight, as you can see, we are a little bit different lineup as Tyler is still sunning himself in Miami. So we're joined by Sid and Steve, Tom, Paul, and a massive welcome to our lovely friend Callum, who joins us for the first time on the Charlton Chronicles. Callum obviously has his own podcast, so we're having a bit of a crossover tonight, and we will give you the details of Callum's podcast so that you can go over and give Callum a follow as well. So, Callum, I'll start with you actually, mate. Welcome to the Charlton Chronicles, and thanks for coming on. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to it. I did my sort of post-match earlier, so for those that listen, they get to hear my dulcet tones. Bit of a downgrade on Tyler, but that's all right for one night.
Nah, Tyler is our goat, but he's buggered off and left us. So you're a good replacement. Stephen, Sid, I'll come to you next. How are you both?
Yeah, better after yesterday. A little bit of disappointment yesterday, but yeah. After reflection, you let things lie, don't you, and you move on. But yeah, all good. Can I just have a quick shout out? I met myself and Sydney met one of the guys in the chat, Mark Drury, yesterday. What a fantastically nice guy. Came up and introduced us like you mentioned, Emma, when you say to the guys come up and say hello. He come up and said hello. He was very complimentary about the podcast and for Sydney. So nice to meet you, Mark. Good to see you here again, mate.
Yeah, Mark's the top. Yeah. I've only had one drink. Mark's the top fella. I've met Mark before. Yeah, he's a lovely guy, a massive supporter of the Chronicles as well. Yeah. So glad he got to meet you guys yesterday. Paul, I'll come to you next. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm all right, mate. Yeah, obviously a bit down after yesterday. Missed opportunity against the weakened Millwall side, but no, a point's a point, and we've got an average of a point for the first 5 games. So I think if you asked me before the season, I would have snapped my hand off for that.
Yeah, and Tom, last but not least, obviously you're probably happy today because the women had a good win.
Yes.
And your boy TC got man of the match yesterday, which obviously we will talk about later. So how are you?
Yeah, I'm all good. Obviously, yeah, the women came from behind against Durham. As I said in the backstage, Durham must hate us because that's the 3rd time in a row we've come from 1-0 down to win 2-1 against them, which is crazy. Obviously, yesterday wasn't ideal, but in reflection, it's a point. It's positive. We'll take it. But yeah, hopefully we can bounce back against Sheff.
Yeah, I think we lost you for a bit there. The signal seems to be a bit funny. So we'll say good evening to a few people in the chat. So Robert's first in. He just said, good evening all. Disappointed with the result and worried that our forwards are not scoring. We will probably be touching on that tonight. Good evening to Jack. Good evening to Tracy. Good evening to Ian and James. Good evening to Tom. Good evening to Glenny Boy. Good evening to Mark. Good evening to Charlie. Good evening to Maxim, who has put hashtag free Tanto. Love that.
Yep.
Good evening to Chris, and good evening to the other Chris as well. So, obviously tonight we're going to reflect on the draw against them idiots from the other side of the water. We'll obviously talk about the red card. We'll talk about some individual performances. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. So, Callum, as our guest, I'm probably going to come to you first tonight. So, just without going too deep into player performances, give me your sort of overall reaction on the game yesterday.
First 60 minutes, I thought we were pretty dominant. I don't think we created a heck of a lot, but that's nothing new. If we'd been 11 versus 11 for the whole game, I think we would have seen it out. Red card changed it. I'm sure we'll get into it later. But no, I don't think anyone was particularly bad yesterday. And the red card just sort of changed the game completely. But issue is that's a weakened Millwall side. I think Paul was saying it earlier, and that's the worry.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Steve and Sid, I'll come to you next. Are you? I think, we were talking about on Wednesday. I think, I said I would have gladly have took a draw before the game. But I kind of walked away from there feeling like we'd lost almost. And I felt disappointed. One, because we've got to listen to them keep goading us about how many years they've beaten us for, even though we've only played them like 13 times in like 30 years. And so are you happy with that point overall, or did it feel a bit disappointing to you?
I think it felt like 2 points dropped, if I'm being brutally honest. Yeah, like probably everyone in the ground. I think if we'd have kept 11 on the pitch, I think not only would we have kept it at 0, I think we potentially may have scored again. Miles came on and did really well, but yeah, it was a game changer. We did so well. And even at 10 men, the boys gave it a real good going. The worry was that we would get sucker punched and lose. But yeah, I suppose it's a point, but it certainly felt like 2 points dropped. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, how are you feeling about it today, Sid? Are you a little bit disappointed?
Yeah, definitely disappointed, because it felt like we were going to win, and then Kaminsky made the save, but he basically just gave it back to the player to just score. But yeah, I do think that we should have won, but it was just very unfortunate for us.
Yeah, Paul, we'll actually start going through some player performances, and as Sid just mentioned there, the first one I actually want to talk about is Thomas Kaminsky. Now, I think when he came in, we were sold, he's been an ex-Premiership keeper, he's a really solid shot stopper. How impressed or not impressed have you been with his performances? Because for me, I felt he should have done a lot better for their goal yesterday. Any keeper should know, if you're going to save a shot, you don't parry it straight back into the middle, straight to their attackers. Our defenders were really slow to react. And then again at QPR, I felt maybe he could have saved, I think it was their first goal. Is he really the upgrade on Mannion that maybe we were expecting? Because at the moment, I'm not seeing the upgrade.
Yeah, so to talk about the parry for the goal, I mean, it was quite a sharp shot from close range. So, I mean, I would have said, if you could have pushed it aside, I would say the goalkeepers push it sideways, not straight back in. But I don't know if you had much choice, really, to be honest with you. We were told by some Luton fans that he wasn't very good at crosses, and he did seem to come and be a bit more authoritative yesterday, I thought, and came and claimed some crosses. So that, encouraged me. But as to your question as to whether he's a real upgrade on Will, I'm not sure at the moment, really. He won the Premier League save of the season when they were up there or something like that. So he's obviously a really good shot stopper. But it's actually the all-round game, isn't it, really? We've talked about other keepers we've had, Ash and others, Harry Eisted and so on. They're all really good shot stoppers. It's just that all-round sort of game. I still think it's quite a small sample size for Thomas, really. I think we need to give him a bit more time. I don't think he's been shocking. I mean, the goal against QPR, again, it was close range from Paul Smith, wasn't it, really? Did he have much of a chance? I don't know. He kind of flailed that's it, with his leg, didn't he? So I think the jury's still out. As I say, I think he started to sort of come and claim things yesterday more than he has in previous games. So that, as I say, that encouraged me. But as to give you a straight answer to your question, I'm not sure he's exactly much of an upgrade on Will at the moment. But let's see. Let's give him a few more games to show his mettle.
Yeah, there's an interesting comment in the chat from Chris, who said, imagine that was AMB yesterday, he would have been run out of the club. So I think that's probably the truth. If that was Ash, she probably would have got a lot more criticism maybe than what Kaminsky has got for that. But yeah, I think I definitely need to see more from him. But at the moment, I'm not overly impressed by maybe what we've sold compared to what we've got.
Well, given that he's played in the Premier League, I suppose you'd expect naturally sort of that bias to think, well, yeah, obviously he's going to come in and going to perform sort of miracles, saving shots left, right, and centre, claiming everything, bossing his area. But as I say, it's still 5 league games in small sample size. He's shown some good flashes. Again, I think yesterday's probably a bit harsh to blame him completely for the goal. I mean, as I say, it was hit from quite a relatively short distance. He parried it as best he could. Couldn't get an angle on it, unfortunately. Bangura Williams was very alert. We'll talk about him obviously later on. But when he came on, he was doing bits quite early, quite quickly, wasn't he? So he was really sharp. Other players may not have got to it as quickly as he did. Quick thinking from him. But yeah, as I say, I mean, Thomas has had 5 games. it's still a small sample size. Give him a chance and see how we are in sort of 10, 15 games, and then sort of ask me again.
Yeah, I just think from my perspective, I very much see it that we've obviously dropped Will, who, had a relatively good season, but obviously with the defence we have, it makes him look better. But for someone to come in and replace him, it would have to be a massive upgrade for me. And I don't at the moment really feel we've got that. But like I said, I'm willing to give him a chance. Haven't seen maybe what Nathan Jones has seen to put him in over Will Mannion at the moment.
Well, I would say I feel it's unfair on Will, to be honest with you, because as I say, Thomas hasn't come in and shown great flashes or whatever, or shown occasional flashes, but you wouldn't say he's a massive upgrade. But obviously, we'll see. I mean, the gaffer's made his choice, so he pays your money, takes your choice or whatever, and see it. So just see how it goes. But yeah, I can imagine being in Will's shoes, I wouldn't be too chuffed.
Yeah, I'm just going to reply. James has put in the chat that how are we blaming Kaminsky? We're not necessarily blaming Kaminsky. We're purely giving feedback on player performances and just how we think maybe that he isn't the upgrade that people maybe assumed he was, and that, this is what this podcast is all about. It's about giving opinions, and it's not necessarily criticising him. I personally think he could have done better for the goal, but I'm not blaming him for that. So, Tom, I'm going to come to you next. So, one obviously standout performance, and someone probably who looks like he could be way above this level is Lloyd Jones, who probably put in another incredible performance yesterday. And I think for me, it's what you expect from Lloyd week in, week out. His performance levels never dip. He gives everything for the shirt, and for that, we can't complain. But the main person who's actually impressed me in that back line is Amari Bell. So, who I think, has put in really stellar performances for us so far this season. A player, again, I didn't really know a lot about, was quite unsure about. And again, it was a massive selection choice to pick him over Macaulay Gillespie, who had a fantastic end to last season. And not only that, but obviously scored the winner at Wembley. So, to take him out was, a big decision, but it's obviously paid off, hasn't it? So we're obviously going to talk about Kane Ramsey and the red card shortly. But what do you think of those two in general and their performances yesterday?
I think we've kind of got a level of what we expect from Lloyd now. I think he wins 99% of headers every game. Although I did get worried he was going to get sent off at the end there, which was thankfully he didn't. But no, he was immense again. He commands that central area of that back line, which I love about him, because he's a no nonsense centre back as well. He will go through you if he has to. It's as simple as that. Amari Bell, I think the only reason he's got in over Macca is just purely on pace as well. Because Macca's not the fastest, unfortunately. But I do think we are missing his long balls as well. That's one thing I am gonna say about that. But Amari seems very composed on the ball. Anytime I think he's going to lose it, and anytime he gives me a heart attack at the back, he somehow gets rid of it every single time. But yeah, I mean, he's obviously very versatile. I think he can play the wing back role as well, which is obviously ideal if obviously, fingers crossed, Josh don't get injured and everything like that. But if Josh gets a knock or anything, he can go there. Macca can come in. Obviously, we'll get onto Kane soon, but that back line for me, apart from the error yesterday, is one of the best I've seen out of Charlton in a very, very long time.
Yeah. We'll obviously move, like I said, we'll talk about Kane and the red a little bit later. But Callum, I'll come back to you. Now, this one's a bit more positive, but someone who I've absolutely loved this season, and I knew he was going to be a really good player. And, he got a lot of criticism when he signed. He was our first signing of the summer. Sonny Carey. Now, what a player. I'm not just saying this because he's ginger, although that does help up the gingers. But how impressed have you been with Sonny? I've been massively impressed.
I mean, I can't disagree with you. I think that he's a really willing runner in that sort of role. You don't always get that from those sort of flair 10s. He's quite workmanlike in that way. He's got a really good relationship with Rob Apter from the time at Blackpool. You could actually see that when Apter signed, when you sort of looked at, watched him come in and Kerry with a big smile on his face. That's clearly his mate. But they have a good relationship on the pitch as well. One moves, the other takes it. They sort of play a lot of 1-2s together. What was kind of missing before yesterday was a goal for him, really, and that was one hell of a hit. Simply, sometimes in football, the ball drops and you just have to whack it, right? And that's what he's done. He's just seen it and gone, I'm just going to hit it, and he's put it right in the bottom corner. Keeper can get nowhere near it. But I think he started the season really, really well. And for me, when we signed Nibs, I thought, oh, okay, you pay almost £2 million for a player. He's going to come into that sort of 10 role, but he's going to struggle, right? Because you can't drop Kerry, and Kerry played the full 90, and fully deserved, and fully deserves to start, and until Nibs can sort of try and take that shirt off him. But yeah, for a player that, much like you, I heard some of the sort of Blackpool, I read some sort of the forum stuff, sort of chat to a couple of Blackpool fans, and they were sort of like, he kind of comes in and out of games. I haven't really seen that. I think he's been a lot more workmanlike than they said he was. Some questions about the final ball and all the rest of it, but I think he's been a really good signing and a really good bit of business, especially on a free.
Like Mark's put in the chat, that first touch from Carey to set up his shot was top class. He's class. He looks like a proper box-to-box number 8. Definitely a surprise star player for me. James has put Sonny Carey is definitely one of our best. He drives the ball up so fast, bringing the whole team up. And Stuart has said Carey has been brilliant. And I don't know about you, Callum, but I was actually really surprised that he didn't get nominated for Player of the Month. I was really very surprised that he didn't, and I was a bit bemused that he didn't. And I said that to him as well. I went, really, for me, you should have won that award. And that isn't me taking that away from Rob, but I felt that Carey's overall productivity within the team and his work rate, just he deserved to be, in at least be nominated for that award. So, but I think that is going to come for him. So, Stephen Sid, I'll come to you now. Connor Coventry is Connor Coventry. Like, I don't think we really need to talk much about him because we know what he brings. We know what he does for this team, and he probably is, with Lloyd Jones, one of the first names on the team sheet week in, week out. He does even, he doesn't look out of place in the Championship. He does a great job. I'm still a bit on the fence with Greg Docherty. I don't really get what his role is. So how are you really feeling with Doc, and what do you think he brings to the team? I've seen some good performances from him, but I don't really get what he brings to the team, if I'm being completely honest.
I thought he was quite good yesterday, to be honest. I think he's done better yesterday than he has been doing. But still, he's not a Sonny Carey or Rob Apter. And I think he does need to develop into the squad a little bit more, even though he's been here for a bit of a while now. So I do think that he still needs to adapt to the play, but I do think he had a better game yesterday.
Yeah, and Steve, what would you maybe like to see him do more?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult one. This one, the guys I sit with last season said exactly the same thing as you. There, what is the role? What's the brief from the manager in regards to him, the position that he plays? And to this day now, I still think it's a difficult one. He does lots of things, and he does them well. But I'm not sure there's one standout feature where Carey's great going forward and he drives the team. Coventry's a calm head where he breaks the play up and then sets us on our way. I think that the skipper's industrious. I think he works hard, he tackles hard, and he gets about the pitch. But yeah, is he an 8? Is he a 4? Is he a 10? I'm still not sure exactly that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? And I think, obviously, seeing the team sheet yesterday, there was no Harvey Nibbs on the bench. And I don't think Karoy was on the bench either. So we were a little bit. Was he on the bench, Karoy? I don't think he was.
Nibs definitely was because he came and warmed up.
Nibs was on the bench.
Because he went and
Oh,
warmed
he
up.
was on the bench. I didn't
Nibs
see him.
Karoy
okay.
wasn't at all.
But and the bemusing thing for me, in fact, Paul, our shoe. What has happened to Luke Berry?
Yeah, what has happened to Luke Berry? I'm not sure actually.
He's injured.
I probably want to tell you.
Oh, is he injured?
Yeah, it's just a
Yeah, I
slight
think
knock.
that's what I thought he was.
Before the end of the break.
Yeah, no.
So should Godden as well.
Yeah,
I thought he'd been back in training. To be fair, but
yeah, no. So I thought it was a trick question, Emma, because he's been injured for a while. I'm not sure. We'll talk about Goddard's probably later on, but I'm getting increasingly anxious with no sort of updates really. But to go back to Doc, I think if you took him out of the team, I think you'd notice it because he does a lot of, as Steve says, he gets all out and about. I mean, Eric Cantona called Didier Deschamps a water carrier. Now, far be it from me to compare Doc with France's World Cup winning captain, but the sort of thing that Deschamps did was very much that sort of spade work. It wasn't creative. He was the guy that was making things tick. He was, calling people out. I know, obviously, Doc perhaps, could do being a bit more vocal. We've spoken many times about that on the podcast before. But, he really gets about the pitch. I thought he was excellent yesterday. I thought him and Connor were just, getting stuck in as they always do. It's unglamorous what Doc does. Sometimes it's unglamorous, what Cov does. But, I mean, it's essential to the team. And I think if you took him out and, say, put Harvey in, I'm not sure that. I mean, Harvey's more creative, obviously, but I think you probably missed that sort of hard sort of tackling and stuff. Similar with Luke, we've spoken about Luke, of course, many times, certainly last season. I presume Chris is in the chat, so I need to be careful what I say. But obviously, we were looking for Luke to be that sort of creative person. I think last year, certainly a lot of the games that we had, they didn't allow for that. That it had to be that sort of spade work in the trenches type stuff, which he doesn't excel at. Didn't get much opportunity to do. So I really think that Doc is making himself, almost undroppable, similar to Connor. Others may disagree, and that's absolutely fine. Football's opinions, as the cliche goes. But I think if you took Doc out, you would notice it.
What I will say.
Sorry, go on, Tom.
What I will say as well is, I think we said before. I think everyone else has kind of stepped up more, and we've kind of got more championship players, and he's kind of gone a bit more under it because obviously last year he came in as a championship player. We thought he was going to be amazing, and he was quality in that midfield last time. But I feel like because Kov stepped up big time, so has Carey as well, obviously. So I think that's kind of maybe why as well. I don't think he's done anything wrong. Like the first game or two, he was a bit meh, but as Paul said, I think if you take him out, I think you'll notice. And plus, I think I said last week, him and Kov, that partnership was a very mainstay of our run last year to Wembley and everything like that as well.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with what Mark's put in the chat. He said Doc is a bit of a jack of all trades player. I'd be surprised if someone doesn't develop through the season to take his spot as the season goes on. One thing I will say about him, his work rate is non-stop.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't know, for me, what he kind of does, like his role. I'm just a bit bemused by it, but it doesn't mean to say that I don't rate him. I like his work ethic and the fact that he works hard. That is what I will say. So, Tom, I'll come to you to talk about Josh Edwards and Rob Apter. Now, I actually thought yesterday Rob Apter was a little bit quiet.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought Josh Edwards had a much better game, bearing in mind he was quite poor against QPR. So, what did you make of their performances yesterday?
I'll start with Josh. Yeah, I thought he was immense. Obviously his throws, as always, are long as anything. I thought he held their right side player up very, very well each time. I think he might have been him once, and then I think he blocked the cross every single time, pretty much. He was driving up the pitch as well, which was nice to see. He did do a few spray balls which didn't work, but he made up for it with his defensive part of the thing, I think, in my opinion. Apter, yes, I think he was a little bit quieter, but I feel like because he's had such good games the last game or two, I think people are now starting to have like expectation, if you like, of him maybe. Obviously, he's a good player, and he's one of the best signings that we've made. But yeah, I think maybe he was getting doubled up on a little bit as well. And obviously with their left-sided player who was very, very quick, by the way. I think he was struggling a little bit. And obviously, Kane helped until obviously the red. But yeah, I thought both were all right. Obviously, he came off for Bree, who again I thought was defensively solid as well. But yeah, both sides didn't really pull a foot wrong for me.
Yeah, and I think with Actor as well, I think sometimes we forget how small he is.
Yeah.
Like, I sort of met him after and I sort of had my pitch taken, and I'm only 5'4" and he's kind of my size. So I was like, oh God, I was like, you're tiny. Like, I could put him in my pocket.
He's listed at 5'6", but I think that might be being generous.
Well, yeah, I mean, I wasn't in heels. I was in flip-flops. So, you know, and he wasn't, much bigger than me.
Very generous 5'6".
Yeah. I think it's one of them where they up it on Wikipedia, isn't it? It's like, I'm going to add a couple of inches on. But no, he is a quality signing. But obviously, he hasn't got the physicality, has he? Which, you know, being that small, he's going to struggle.
I do also think people forget he's not a wing back either. He wasn't a wing back for Blackpool at all, which obviously Nathan will work on that with him, and I think he's done all right defensively as well. But obviously, I think people do forget as well he's not a wing back, and he's used to being a lot higher up the pitch.
Which is why he's getting subbed as well, because he's gassed after an hour.
Yeah.
And QPR round yesterday, he was absolutely blowing at about 58 minutes. He's just not used to going up and down like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I suppose when you are doing that, it's going to knacker you, isn't it? Callum, I'm going to come to you because something we always rant about. No, just the front in general, like our attacking options. It's something we rant on about this podcast week in, week out this season so far, and I just find it really frustrating because I think a lot of us didn't want to see Tyrese start yesterday. And I ate my words. I thought he had a really great game. But if I go back on it, do I think he deserved man of the match? For me, no. I would have given it to Carey. But again, he isn't creating enough for me. You know, he didn't get an assist. He doesn't get the goals. That front two, there's something not right. You know, Leeburn put in what I thought a really stellar performance at QPR.
So did I.
He shouldn't have been dropped yesterday.
I agree with you, Billy.
I felt with Millwall being quite a physical team, the way the game was going to go, a big London derby, I thought the occasion might have swallowed TC up, which obviously didn't. He had a great game. I'm not denying that. But what is going on with that front two? Because as well, we've got Tanto Alafe. Now, I'm a big Tanto fan. I loved watching him at Stockport. He's the kind of striker that I like, a striker that can really hold the ball up, may not score you 20, 25 goals a season, but he's very much Chuck Zaniki-like for me. And I think he would have suited that game perfectly yesterday. Now, this guy we paid 1.5 million for, and he's not getting any minutes. So what in your opinion is going on?
So if I sort of take the strikers, you have to just give me a couple of moments to sort of explain it. I'd sort of break it down into a couple of things.
Yeah, it's fine.
So I think that Kelman at 3.5 million, because of the even if it's slightly less than that, right? You've paid so much money for him, and also he's the sort of player that starts season slow and then normally starts scoring. That's what he did last year. I said on my podcast earlier today, it's sort of a weird Alice in the Wonderland moment where we kind of seem to have exactly the same as last season. Kane starts like a house on fire. Kelman can't seem to, can't score a goal. And you hope that we kind of get that repetition and Kane goes cold and Kelman ends up scoring, because otherwise we've basically funded QPR signing of Richard Kane. So I get why he's trying to get Kelman out, because I think Kelman just needs a goal. He's a little bit like Godden was last year. He just needs to get one to go in. The problem is Kelman's not even taking a shot. And he doesn't do enough outside of finishing to sort of make up for the fact that he's not scoring goals. And that's where I think the problem sort of starts. I mean, I'm a huge Miles Leeburn fan. I think that I was massively enthused when he signed that contract extension in the summer. I think the talent is there, and I think he should be starting as often as humanly possible. You don't find players of that size with that sort of technical ability very often. And beyond that, he's a massive club asset. So when we ultimately go and sell him, you hope that, if he's had a decent 6 months in the Championship to a decent year, you hope that you can, potentially do something like Millwall did with Esse, right? And get a huge amount of money for a player of that age if he can sort of stay fit for a little while. So I sort of understand that rotation if they're trying to keep him fit as well. TC is not a striker, we know that. He's sort of playing a weird forward hybrid role where he's actually going out to the left when we're on the ball, so we become a back four in possession. And so you've got Apsa that goes out to the right and basically plays at right wing. Obviously, Ramsey does that weird sort of hybrid right back, centre back covering role. But because he's not a striker and he's sort of playing in a striker role, he's not going to win those 50-50s that we all get really irritated that he doesn't win, because that's not really his role and he's not big enough to do that. Although Afe, I liked the signing at the time, and I actually agree with you. I think that a game like yesterday may have suited him. I think the issue is that he'd made 2 subs, I think, before the red card had happened, and at that point, one of the subs was to bring Liban on. So we didn't have an extra window, and he had to go defensive because Ramsey got himself sent off, and we can talk about that later. My thing with Tanto is that the games that he has played, he looked okay against Stevenage, I thought, but it was Stevenage's backups. And then he looked really, really poor against Cambridge in the Cup. And I think then playing that full 90, I think Jones kind of looked at it and was a little bit, I don't know about you right now. So he sort of needs to fight his way back in. But then TC had such a good game yesterday that now he can't get himself back in. So I think at the moment it's just a bunch of jigsaw pieces. And the manager has to find a way to make it all fit. Personally, I think that I would, what's my dream front two? Funnily enough, is actually one we had last year. I'd actually say it would be Liban and Godden when he's fit. But then you're dropping a player at TC that we know Jones likes, and you've got, how many players can have on the bench that are strikers, and I think it's just all a little bit disjointed. And I don't think it's helping all of us either that Carney's done what Carney does and he's gone out on loan and just started scoring for Walsall. So that doesn't make it all look particularly good.
Yeah, big up
either.
Dan Carnu as well. So.
Yeah. Massively, and I thought Mbick supposedly came on for Coventry and played really well when he came on as well. So it's a frustrating one. I think for me, getting Kelman scoring is the most important thing, and if you can't get him scoring, you need Godden back because. But if he can't score goals, he's going to have to do the hold the ball up, win the flick-ons, be able to play other players into space. The last point I'll just make about Kelman is that. And I hate the word sort of football intelligence because I think it sounds really harsh. And I think Charlie Kelman's a good footballer. So I really don't want to be taken out of context. But some of the runs he makes are not particularly intelligent. He'll go straight when he should be sort of zigzagging out. And I think that we're sort of seeing that some of those runs at this level, whereas they may have worked in League One when you kind of, everything's a little bit more cramped up. In the Championship, players are just going to snuff that out. You've got to be smarter with the runs that you're making. And if someone's going to kick you the ball, it's not that we're playing long ball. What we're trying to do is get players into pockets of space. And I think TC found those pockets yesterday. And I just don't think Kelman did. And I know it's a bit of it's a tricky subject for Charlton fans. I think we all have different opinions who we'd start. It'd be really interesting to see if other people have sort of, their idea as to what maybe a fix is. But I think on this, you're just going to have to hope that Nathan finds the combination that works.
Yeah, do you think it could be down to consistency as well? Like someone's put in the chat that he obviously had a great relationship with Donnelly, Orient.
He did, yeah.
And so obviously if we're gonna give Charlie the best chance that he obviously has the talent. We've got to find some way of linking him up with Carey. Because you see the relationship that Carey and Apter have got. We really need to work. If we're going to give Charlie that chance, we've got to make sure that we can link him up with the correct players that are playing behind him, because he isn't the type of striker that is going to create his own chances.
Yeah, fully agreed. I've just saw someone's comment that's distracted me, and that's where I'll come. But yeah, no, I mean, one of the problems that we're having, I think, as well, is that we're doing so much chopping and changing up front that players can't get used to each other. I think Liban and Campbell probably looked better because they played with each other coming up through the youth teams. So they kind of know, and by youth teams, I mean under 16, because Liban joined at 16 or 15, whatever it was when he was left Chelsea. But they played with each other for a couple of seasons. They know where they're going. The problem at the moment is I don't think Kelman's making particularly intelligent runs. And then I think that his partner often thinks that he's making a different run to the one that he has. And that's, I think, where some of the issues is going. And that can be coached, right? You can coach those sort of things. I know that Coleman said before he wants to learn from Matty, and that's something once Matty's kind of back on the training pitch, he can sort of learn, I think, in real time. And I think that will be very helpful for him. Can I just do one quick thing just on a comment that I saw? It's just someone on Lieburn's wasn't closing down players quick enough for me. I think on that, the real problem with that is that he's 6'6" and not particularly mobile because he's 6'6" and humongous. So asking him to press like that, he can't laterally move that quickly. It's just because he's that size. So I think that's what that problem is rather than, and I don't think the comment was insinuating there was any sort of effort problem there. I think it's just he's sort of the one striker we have you really don't want up front when you're down to 10 men because he can't do that sort of lateral press from the front, so gaps are sort of created.
I think he's 6'7", Callum, as well.
Is he 6'7"?
He's 6'7", yeah. So, Will, that's a great. You've given some really great feedback and information there, Callum. You know, I think the striking area is the one problem that we are really struggling with. Like Phillips put in the chat, if we were Jigsaw, Jones has lost the box and some of the pieces. So that probably is quite true.
That's
to be
how
fair.
I feel. That's how I feel. That's why I say if anybody
yeah.
else has got feedback, I think anybody's idea of a suggestion is perfectly legitimate because I don't think any of us know what the answer really is.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I think the point that you made about Tanto and Cambridge was really valid, though, Callum, because it seems that with Nathan, he gives people opportunities. If you don't grab him with both hands, it's not like you're dead to him, but it's almost like that. You know, it's we had that with Alex Mitchell obviously last season as well. It's like you have to almost measure up to what he wants. And Cambridge, there were a number of players that obviously let themselves down at Cambridge. The other thing with Orient, I'm sure I'm playing devil's advocate here, but obviously the blend that I had at Orient was like catching lightning in a bottle last year. They had some incredible loan eats. And you might say, well, they worked so well for Charlie. He worked in that structure. He's come to a different structure. But as you say, I mean, that can be coached. Things can happen, but it just means that he's going to take more time than new teammates. Unlike, Rob and Sonny, where they had that sort of understanding, which I think has helped them, as you said, Emma, with Charlie, with the fee, as you said. And we said this before, you can say that, you'll just get your head down and not bother. But if a team's paid 3 million or whatever it is, that's going to obviously play on your mind. If you're not scoring or starting to score, that's going to obviously prey on his mind. But I'm sure that he'll be fine. He's almost there. I think he really is almost there. There were good signs at QPR, good signs yesterday. That he's sort of starting to come into his own and get understanding with teammates. It's not quite there yet, but I think we're so near, and it's going to hopefully come together at some point in the next few games. Ideally on Saturday, although we'll see what happens with the sort of new manager bounce back, particularly if it's Wilder. But yeah, I think Charlie's needed there. But yeah, certainly I'm a Tanto fan like Emma, but I think he may have blotted his copybook. I think.
Has he had a shot in a league game yet, Charlie? Even off target? I know he had the shot against Stevenage, but I don't think he's even had a shot in he's played in all 5, hasn't he?
To be honest, I think yesterday I even forgot he was playing.
Yeah.
So that's how bad he is, really. And I'll just go back to the Cambridge game because I think a lot of people are judging Tanto off that Cambridge game. I don't really think we can judge him off that. The whole team were diabolical.
I was there. The best bit was the free pie they gave me.
Yeah, I really don't. I'm glad I sat at home. I turned it off after, I think, 60 minutes. I think, that if you're going to give a new signing a chance, you need to do it in a league game with the proper squad to get the real judge of what he is going to be like. To play him against, with a second string team. I mean, we had academy players in that team. It's not fair to judge him off that performance, in my opinion, and he needs more minutes in the league to see what he can do.
And it's not quite the same as you got the issue with, and I will be quiet after this because I want to hear from other people. But the but the Kerry Nibs thing, right? Nibs had the same problem. He had a pretty awful game at Cambridge and sort of let himself down. Joe Rankin Costello actually same game, hasn't been really seen since. The thing about it is you look at it and go, the difference here is that obviously Nibs has Kerry in front of him playing well, right? Tanto is not like the strikers are playing well. We haven't scored from a striker in 5 league games, right? So you think there's a little bit more space to actually experiment with that. But I think Harvey and Joe probably would make the same comment, right? Like, you're judging me not, playing with a backline of children and Macaulay Gillespie. How am I supposed to sort of show show my own sort of talents, and I think that is an issue that we have.
Yeah, 100%. So we're going to probably move on to. Philip has put Lee Burn is 6 foot and 5.953 inches according to Wikipedia.
Rounding up that 6'6".
That's very well. It was actually Tracy who told me that he was 6'7". So I'll
we'll
go.
Trust Tracy. We'll always trust the man.
As it's her son, I'll trust that. Stephen Seed, I'm going to come to you probably about the most important subject from yesterday, which was Kane Ramsey sending off. Now, it was a massive game changer for us, and I've seen Kane get a fair bit of abuse. We won't talk about some of the disgusting racial abuse that was given to him on Twitter, which is never acceptable. And you know, if you are thinking of ever putting anything like that online, just don't do it. It's disgusting. That kind of abuse isn't welcome at this football club, and it's not welcome at any football club. So if you're ever thinking of doing that, just don't do it. Because if you can't support the player, whether they're black, white, purple, then I'm afraid you're not welcome at the club. End of. So... obviously, you know, he had 2 yellow cards. I spoke to him after. He was absolutely devastated. You know, he said to me, Emma, I've let everybody down. And I said, no, you haven't. I said, look, you've been incredible, you know, and I think that's, you know, we're all entitled to make a mistake. You know, it's life, isn't it? We all make mistakes. But more from that, what I really want to discuss is the comments that Nathan Jones made to Sky Sports afterwards. Which I feel like he's thrown Kane under the bus a little bit by saying, you know, he's sometimes lethargic in games. And it's like, do you really need to make those comments? So what's your thoughts?
Well, if he is, he's watched a few different games to me, because I don't think I've seen Ramsey lethargic in any game this season. It was kind of baffling. I think Paul made a good comment yesterday. It might have been one of those ones where he had a microphone shoved in his face straight after the game, and then before you know it, you've said something strange that you may not have done if you'd have had 10-15 minutes to sort of get your thoughts and go from there. But yeah, I mean, let's say it for what it is. It was a mistake. You're talking about a guy that's been one of our shining lights all season. He's been consistent. He's been fantastic. Him, Jones, and Bell have been superb. But Ramsey has really shone. Now, I think the winger that he marked yesterday probably gave him as many problems as anyone has this season, to be honest with you. And ironically, in a strange kind of way, the fact that he's played so well this season and he's so confident in where his game is, I think was probably one of the downfalls in regards to him making that challenge. Because I think Ramsey was probably at a confident stage where he just thinks, whatever challenge I make, I'll get the ball. I'll be clean. I'll win the challenge. I'll go through. And unfortunately, he probably just either mistimed it yesterday, misjudged how quickly the guy was moving. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, if you've played the game, if you understand the game, if you've watched the game, you just can't make that challenge on a yellow card. And he knows that. He knows that, for goodness sake. I mean, but he's just made an error. He's come out on his Instagram and he's you know, he's taken it on board. He's said to everyone, us Charlton fans, that he's made an error. Ultimately, it's cost us the game yesterday, and if we'd have seen it out yesterday and got the win, I'm sure he'd have been the first guy in the changing room yesterday, hugging every player out there, especially the back three that have held on. But it wasn't to be, and it was just one of those factors when we play that lot that went against us yesterday. And unfortunately, in this circumstance, it was Kane that made the mistake. But I don't think for one moment that he should have been vilified by anyone, certainly not a manager. And if you're talking about, you know, the level of abuse that he's received on Twitter, these people need to give their head a wobble anyway, because it's probably the first mistake he's made this season. And then to go one step further in regards to racial slurs, etc., as you say, there's just no place for that, is there? You know, there's as much as we expect managers to give a measured, balanced comment after the game. There's probably a few people on Twitter that should go away and walk away, go for a walk for a couple of hours before they actually go online and then vent their spleen. But yeah, Ramsey's made a mistake. He's owned up for it. He's been brilliant for us all season. And I think the people that have been at the games that know football, they'll accept it and move on. It didn't get us to win against Millwall, but so be it. It's just one of those things, isn't it?
Yeah. I think we'll get them back at the Den, Steve. That's
A lot of people have said that, it wasn't to be for us this year, but there's a lot of people that think we'll go away and beat them there. So fingers crossed. Fingers
I
crossed.
think you saw as well, as soon as he made that challenge, he was like, for fuck's sake and everything, like he knew what was coming. I mean, I think I said like before the game, I felt a red card coming, and I said some of the challenges Kane does, he does get lucky with quite a few of them, if we're being honest. So it was coming. I said to my mate after the game, I'm thankful it's only one game and not 3 games he's out for as well.
Yeah, I mean, speaking to Kane like I do, I know no one hurts and beats himself up more than Kane does. And after QPR, he was kicking himself, said he'd let everybody down. And I was like, it's not all on you. And, he loves playing for this football club. And don't ever think, he goes out intentionally to do that, because he doesn't. He's still young. And I think we forget that. And, he's obviously come from Harrogate, and he's making a big step up to the Championship. And I think he's earned more than enough bonus points for me to make that mistake and get away with it, to be honest, because he's been superb for me, and he probably is the one player in the back three that excites me the most, and I love watching every week. So, he'll bounce back from that, and I'm not even concerned that he won't be backfiring for Blackburn at home on the 27th. So,
it's a cliche, Emma, but obviously every game at this level is a learning experience for all of them.
Yeah.
And by the way, I prefer a nice round number, so 30 years to break the hoodoo. 24th of January suits me.
Yeah. Paul, I'll come to you. Obviously, so we now go into Sheffield United away next weekend. We won't talk too much about this because we'll discuss it on Wednesday's show, but obviously they've sacked Ruben Selles today. Unfortunately, it looks like Chris Wilder's going back in there for like the millionth time.
Fifth spell there.
It's ridiculous. Now we're going to Sheffield, bottom of the league.
Yeah.
The town of Sheffield has like no points. I think they're both in the bottom 2. They're not doing very well, poor old Sheffield at the moment. So obviously we have no Kane Ramsey for that game. Who would you put in the place of Kane Ramsey for that game?
I think James Bree acquitted himself well. It was only a brief period, wasn't it? But I mean, again, he's got the ability at that level. Apparently did quite well in the Prem, from what Martin was saying to Richard Corley the other week, Southampton blogger. So I'd put James in there. See, let's give him a chance. It's unfortunate, obviously, as you say, that they sacked Sellers. They could have waited. Obviously, very inconsiderate. But yeah, I mean, obviously, Wilder comes back, there'll be that sort of bounce back ability. I was going to say new manager bounce, but sort of retread or whatever. But I mean, he's obviously a Sheffield lad, Sheffield United fan, so they're going to be up for it, aren't they? It's going to be similar to QPR, that they're sort of smarting from a 5-0 beating. They were pretty poor. I think they won the possession battle. Actually, I think they had more possession, just didn't do anything with it. As I say, they'll be up for it. But as I say, I think hopefully James will come in, sort of do the business, and I'm really looking forward. I'm going up there, as I'm sure all of us are. So I'm really looking forward to it, I think. But as I say, it's unfortunate. They could have waited to pull the trigger, but such is life.
Yeah, I mean, a few people have put in the chat. A couple of people have gone for Bree, and a couple of people have gone for Reece Burke as well. I mean, when I've seen Burke, he looks outstanding. His fitness levels concern the hell out of me, and his injury issues. But I think he's just Charlton, and he's been Charltoned.
It makes Chuck look fit.
Well, yeah. But that's all we're going to talk about for Millwall. Now, Callum, I just want 5 minutes of your time, because I want the Charlton Chronicles family to find out a little bit more about you as a Charlton fan. This is what we like doing with our guests. We like to get to, the Charlton family, to get to know them. So just sort of 5 minutes. Tell us about your Charlton journey, how you got into supporting the club and stuff like that. And about your podcast as well.
Yeah, I'll do the podcast bit first because it's easy. So I do a pod. It's called From the Valley Floyd. I do it on a Wednesday, normally about 7. Sometimes this changes depending on life. And then I do like a Sunday sort of recap show I do a live sort of stream, which people are welcome to come in and watch and respond to comments, and very similar to here. But most people that I have actually listen on a podcast version, it just ends up being me a lot of time. So, Sam Cutt from Charlton Live is a really good friend of mine. He's quite often in the chat. Paul sometimes in the chat, which I appreciate. And I sort of have a bit of a chat, and it's, we try to be pretty relaxed about it. Emma, you know me. I can after games I can vent. I need to work on it. But the pod's not me venting. It's me sort of trying to sit there calmly, rationally look at things and kind of pick through different elements. So that's really what it is. It's just another way to sort of chat. I try to sort of shout out other podcasts. I try to sort of, be supportive and I don't see, other pods as competition or anything like that. I think that's really, really silly. I do it for fun. And people are welcome to come and join me. All opinions are valid, and come and tell me I'm wrong. I don't think sometimes I get enough of that. So if people want to come and say that I'm wrong, you're more than welcome to. But yeah, my journey, my granddad left Ireland in the back in the 50s or 60s, late 50s. He came over and they ended up in Plumstead actually. And he would go down to the old valley. My mum's got stories of sitting in the old terraces and freezing. But that's sort of where it comes from. My granddad was never like a sort of tribal Charlton fan. He was just a football fan. And he was my hero as a kid. And, he's been gone for a few years now. And when he passed, I was sort of looking for a way to sort of reconnect. And I've always been, I was always looked out for Charlton, always sort of looked out for the results, that sort of thing. But when he passed, I really wanted a way to sort of reconnect with him, and so I started coming down. And once I did that, I kind of got the bug, and I fell in love. And then on my first away day, obviously, you'll know, I met Larry, Matt, and our dearly departed Glenn on the coach, and that started, some really wonderful friendships. I still have friendships from that, and it's just been that sort of journey, the ups, the downs. Michael Appleton years, which the 6 months, which is somehow worse than the downs, and then the sort of slow build back up, but it's been, it's been a wonderful journey, and I go home and away. You'll see me around. Feel free to come say hello. Probably have had a few beers, but it's yeah, I live by that sort of maxim of football is the most important of the least important things, and I think that probably sums me up and sums up sort of how I try to do things. But yeah, in that story, my granddad and my Glenn rest in peace.
I do.
Human beings.
I do miss him terribly every single game. But I know He's watching over us and probably effing and blinding at the referee. I'll ask you guys, have any of you got a question for Callum that you'd like to find out a bit more about him, maybe?
Well, just to comment, actually, Callum, it's obviously, as you say, I tune into your podcast, and it's. I guess it must be quite difficult to do it on your own in a sense. I know we have sort of chat and stuff. So I admire you for obviously building. You're obviously building it. You've just started it quite recently, haven't you? Last few months. And it's well worth tuning in, because at the moment it's sort of me and Sam occasionally in the chat, probably boring you to death, or certainly me. So obviously having a few more people in the live would be really, I think, really, really good. So it's a really good product, and you've obviously got a lot of really cogent stuff to say. It goes beyond sort of some of the sort of Twitter rants. You obviously have a lot of really sensible points to make, which is always helpful, I think. So, but I'll take your point about trying to disagree. So I'll bear that in mind for future podcasts.
Callum knows that I disagree with him because we had a little argument at Oxford away a few years ago over Lucas Ness. It was Dean Holden's last game in charge before he got sacked.
I think that game was just a mess for everybody.
Yeah.
Not for Sydney, she was mascot.
Oh yeah, Sid was mascot. But has anyone else got any questions for Callum?
Yeah.
Go on, Sid.
Callum, what's been your favourite overall Charlton game as a fan?
As a fan.
Good one.
In terms of enjoyment, I do it a bit more recently in terms of enjoyment. I don't know why it sticks out to me, but beating Bolton at home last year felt very good. Birmingham at home felt very good. Just sort of shutting that lot up. I may have riled them up by calling them a Poundland Aston Villa on the way home. Weren't happy with me.
I work for Poundland, not for much longer, but I do. So watch it.
I like Poundland. But yeah, I mean, the moment for me was that Wembley was actually on my birthday, which was a bit funny. But at the end of that game, it turns out I wasn't the only one, so I'm not embarrassed to say it. I sort of sobbed a little bit, sort of remembered those that weren't with me. It was a really emotional moment, and ended up in a big hug with the friends that I've met, and I've built my own little community. I'm a bit of a social butterfly.
You can't beat the Charlton family. I don't think we're a weird, wonderful, and fucked up bunch. I've got a few questions for you, Callum, from the chat. Stuart just wants to know how we find your podcast.
It's from the Valley Floyd. And it's on YouTube. It's also on all of your podcast apps.
There you go. So from the Valley Floyd.
It will be there. From the Valley Floyd.
Yeah, so go give Callum's podcast a watch, guys. He's a proper fan who goes home and away regularly. So yeah, go and give him a watch, please, guys, and give him some support. We've got another question. Do you have a favourite? I know your favourite Charlton player at the moment is Miles Leaburn, but who is your favourite all-time Charlton player?
It's not actually my favourite, but my favourite player, for favourite in general, is actually probably Coventry. I'm a really big fan of those really sort of boring tempo midfielders. It's like one of my favourite players historically is Michael Carrick, and everyone looks at me like I'm slightly mad. But I live just down the road from West Ham's, let's call it a ground, but that's very strong, fishbowl. But that's obviously the school of those sort of tempo midfielders. So I'm a big fan of those sort of tempo midfielders. And then I'm assuming someone wanted all time Darren Bent by a mile. Love the bloke.
Good choice.
I've got a signed picture in the shirt to go up behind me once. I'm just waiting for my dad to come down to give me a hand. But yeah, that's my favourite all time player. So.
And then we've got another question. All-time favourite manager and worst manager for Charlton?
I mean, the worst manager is Michael Appleton. I will know nothing different. And that's only not necessarily because of results, which were terrible. Although I will give him the very slight excuse of we did have injuries everywhere. But it was for the way he made me feel, which was completely disconnected from my own football club. I think anytime a manager threatens to have a fisticuffs with fans outside in the car park, things have gone horribly wrong. Yeah. But he was just an incredibly unlikable bloke. And to me, that's worse than results. There have been some pretty bad ones, obviously. I'm forgetting the Belgian's name. He was carried out in a washing basket. It's difficult to beat that. But that's for me best ever. I mean, two managers of their names on the stands, right? There's Jimmy Seed. I obviously wasn't old enough to watch. Yes, Frey. There you go. Thanks, DJL. Carol Frey was carried out in a wash basket after a game. It was so embarrassing. But only two obviously have their name, so it's going to have to be. It'll have to be Kirbishley, won't it? For me, in terms of I had time to watch, obviously, and manage my favourite player. And I actually quite like Nathan Jones. I think a lot of the stuff is a character, and I think people get riled up about it, and I quite like that. And I also understand that he's a very Marmite human being. And that the results are good enough. The ref doesn't matter. Peter's If
you know me, you'll know I'm not Nathan Jones's biggest fan.
No, that's fair enough. As I say, he's a really Marmite personality.
I just don't find him very likable, unfortunately. But it's a results-based business, and as long as he gets the results and he does his job, I don't really care. But I'd probably say my favourite is Jose Riga. What a legend!
Oh, I love that man.
Good shout.
Let's just talk about Jose Riga, and he's so bloody handsome as well. So it's a win. It's a win-win for me.
And if we don't mention Powell and Bowyer, right, the other two that I think you could easily choose and be happy about. And I was delighted to read Bowyer's interview with Corley, where he mentioned being welcome back and how the player found. They asked him to come to Wickham. and how we felt for the first time, you know, really since it all went wrong. That an ownership group had sort of said, actually, you know, your history matters to us. Come back. We want to see you. And I think that's just you know, it feels like that at least that part of the club is in the right place. Let's see where we go with the rest of it.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, that is going to be us for tonight. But before we go, I have just got to give a massive shout out because someone has their birthday on this pod coming up in the next few days, and you can see her smiling. It is our beautiful Sydney's birthday on Wednesday. So I just want to wish Sid a massive happy birthday. She had her present from me yesterday, so she's got a framed. It's the lyrics of Valley Floyd Road that I've got her, which is her favourite Charlton song. So that'll be up on the wall. Sid's room is like a Charlton. Well, you don't even want to know. It's like a George Dobson stroke Charlton shrine. It's amazing. I've been in there. It's incredible. But yeah, Sid, happy birthday from us. We love you, Team Chronicles. So hope you have a really special day. So we won't have Sid on Wednesday. I don't think we'll have Steve either because they're going to the Beefeater. But have a really special day from all of us, and we love you very, very much. So I want to say a big thank you, obviously, to Sid and Steve, to Tom, to Paul, and our very special guest, Callum. You've been an amazing guest tonight. Thank you for sharing all your stories with us. And just tell us again about your podcast, where they can find you.
Yeah, from the Valley Floyd. Wednesdays at 7 normally for a pre-game, and then Sunday afternoons for a post-match. But you can also just listen as a pod if you want.
Amazing. So go give Callum a follow over there and give him some negative feedback as well, so you can get him riled up and argue with him. And then he'll moan at me at the next home game. He'll be like, this person come on and had a go at me. But no, listen, guys, thanks so much for watching tonight. Don't forget to like and subscribe our channel, and make sure you head over to the TikTok page, which is doing amazing. Tom, and the name for that is?
_ the Charlton Chronicles. We've gained a lot of new followers from yesterday, put it that way.
Incredible. So go and support our TikTok. We're also on Facebook and Instagram, the Charlton Chronicles. So we will see you on Wednesday, where we preview Sheffield United away. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care of yourself.
In a bit,
Thank
people.
you.
Just
That's all.